I say organizations don't change. People within the organizations create the change.
Yeah.
And change is a choice.
People are going to be resistant. When we
People
open
are
up,
not resistant.
Okay, go ahead.
They exhibit resistant behaviors.
You know, when you talked about leaving Salesforce, at first I was like, well, go start your own thing, right?
Sure.
I sort of got my thing, you can go do your own thing.
Run away, little girl.
Welcome back. I've got a different format here over the next few weeks. We started moving some of our guests in studio, and you'll see that if you're watching the video. You might also see it a little different dynamic because we're not recording via the internet for these episodes. We are doing them live and in person, which gives a little bit different feel, I think, and a little bit different energy. But you'll also notice a little bit of a different format. The next 6 episodes or so, and they may be broken out over a couple of months, are focused a lot more on the process fixer. That's my business, and it's the business that is relevant to the podcast because my company focuses on automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate, working inside organizations with their systems and processes, finding ways to improve those. So you're going to see that in these next few episodes. These were shot with my team, and as you'll see, guests from my team, folks that work for me, are on some of these episodes, including my wife, who runs our change management and project management division of the Process Fixer. So it's a little bit of a change, but you're also going to start to see now the practical applications of how you take the things that we talk about on this show and how you begin to incorporate them into your organization and set your organization up for the change that is on the horizon. So this is my wife and I, Tracyann, talking about change. Okay, here we go.
You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Process Fixer. Help you see the bigger picture. Derrick Names is the elixir, cutting waste away like scissor. Woo! Got a problem, he can solve it. He's an expert with the process, so for sure you'll see a profit. Bottom line profit. Analyze the work your people doing every day. Expose the inefficiencies getting in the way. Advise you how to automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate, innovate. Now there's more food up on your dinner plate.
Hi.
Hi.
So we've been married for 21 years, and
We have.
you've never been on any of my podcasts.
Yep.
This is sort of interesting and fun.
I'm the man behind the curtain.
You are, or the governor.
The
as
governor
you
behind
are
the
referred
curtain.
to, the
Yes.
governor. Well, listen, I wanted to chat a little bit today because we've been talking more and more about change management on all of the shows.
Mm-hmm.
And
Change leadership.
Change leadership, my apologies. Yep. And because that's what your expertise and your background is, I wanted to bring you in and chat a little bit more about that because it is sort of a relatively, I don't want to say it's a new offering for the Process Fixer because it's not. You just talk about it a little bit differently, right? We've always had it baked into what we did, just not in the way that it should be approached.
No, actually, you do it the right way, I think.
Okay.
When we were talking about how change leadership would align into, I know it's hard because that's what the world calls it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We were talking about merging what I did into what you did. And, you didn't really think that there was a place for it. And when I broke down for you what exactly you did in your process and how you did it, it became very aware. You actually mostly implemented something called ADCAR, which is ProSize, change management framework. And I say management because that's what they call it. But you did it seamlessly. You did it in such a way that from the very beginning, you were involving the people who were going to be affected by the change. And the way you ran your process, you actually did it the right way. So.
Well, I'm glad that you say that, not just because you're my wife, but because you are really an expert in this space. And, when you talked about leaving Salesforce, at first I was like, well, go start your own thing. Right?
Sure.
I sort of got my thing, you can go do your own thing.
Run away, little girl.
But I think very quickly as we started to talk, and we even started to form your brand, we started to put together your packaging, all those kind of things. And we were like, wait a second. This is really an extension because the type of work that we've been doing with the Process Fixer is getting in, really dissecting aspects of the business, breaking them down to their core components, uncovering and discovering the challenges that they have in there, finding the source, going to the source of truth, which is not executives in a boardroom that tell you, oh, here's how we do this and what we do. They don't actually know what the company does. They lead it and manage it, but they don't really know.
Well, they do it holistically and everything rolled up.
Yeah, everything rolled. So when we started talking about this, and it's funny because I recorded earlier with Aaron Bear, and he said something about, you can't have change without people. Like the people are the change. And you say it too, but you say it a little differently.
I say organizations don't change. People within the organizations create the change.
Yeah.
And change is a choice. So that's why I think invoking change leadership into what you do and how you did it so seamlessly was so good, because change is a choice. I can choose to change or I can choose not to change. And if it goes against a corporate value that people have been a part of for so long, or a personal value, that change is not going to happen. So you can't put a change into place that is against a corporate value, that doesn't align to a corporate mission, or that you personally aren't aligned to yourself. So, it's a choice. And it's really critical for people to understand not just leadership, but the person or the team or the group that it's affecting.
Yeah. I think it's really good. And I think it is a choice. And sometimes we even see this in companies that we're working with. Recently we had a company we were working with that had us look over the inventory process, and you were there for that. We had a lot of the team there, and we looked at it and we were like, yeah, it's broken, but it's not worth fixing. Like, it's just not worth fixing. It's not that big of a deal when you really break it down. Now, if we bring some other software in and we do some other things, we'll make it a part of that. But it wasn't a triage aspect of the business. It wasn't life or death. It wasn't a determining factor if they were going to be profitable or not. It was a nice to have.
It was a nice to have, but you also know that you're making other changes, or you're recommending other changes to the organization. That one was one that you could say, we'll put that aside for later, because the other thing you don't want to do is just change stack. We're doing this change, and we're doing this change, and why are we doing that? You can prioritize them. And then, when you adjust one thing, it could correct another, or it could put a wrench into it. What you thought was the right direction, now it could be a different direction. So it's always good to prioritize and really be thoughtful about change stacking or putting too much too heavy on an organization, or expecting too much too soon. And then you end up with change fatigue. People just shut down.
Yeah. I talk about this in Adapt Agility, this concept of kinetic energy. And it's like, we think about when you have momentum and you're rolling, it's really hard to stop. When you have no momentum and you have not changed for so long, and the few times you tried, it never got off the ground, that thing just gets dug in. It's like the rock in the riverbed that the mud keeps burying it and burying it and burying it. And then at some point you're like, oh, I need to move this little rock. Not understanding that this thing goes down 8 feet into the riverbed, into the bedrock, and it's stuck in the mud.
Yep.
So you've got to do that slowly. You've got to dig that out as a team, and you've got to get some success. And you might have to look at the big rocks and say, you know what? This is not, we don't have the kinetic energy to do this. And I think it's kinetic energy is one thing, making sure you have that momentum to move the organization. But, change requires capacity as well. And I talked about this with Aaron and Christy.
Before you go, hold on to that, because I want to jump in on the momentum, right? I think it's Jim Collins calls it flywheel, right? The flywheel effect. So once you get going, that momentum just keeps going. So a lot of times to do that, it's small wins. You also find that not just what you're putting into place, but if you have not solicited your team members for input into the changes that are happening, or how they're happening, or the time frame that they're happening, and then all of a sudden you come in and you're like, we want your ideas. People are like, I don't think so. So it's like our front yard, right? You're talking about the riverbed, but it's like the caliche. You try to dig down into it. It's hard. So it's a lot of hard work at the beginning to plant that seed of, yes, we do value you. And then when you get that seed planted, to let those roots grow, where people are like, you know what, I am part of this organization. I do make a difference. I can be part of that flywheel of success. So even in change, when you start bringing it into an organization that doesn't have a culture of change, or doesn't have a culture, we hear a lot about psychological safety, where people don't feel like they have that safety zone to make a criticism or call something out as being missed. You have to build that. And that's why I wanted to stop you, because that whole analogy of the rock and digging down, it's not just for the change, but it's also when you start saying, I don't think we've done this. It's been a top-down initiative every time we've done it. We want to start crowdsourcing, and we need, not even one, I'm going to say we need to have the people who are doing this work day in and day out actually give you the feedback. Because quite frankly, there should never be, when you're making a change and you're putting an initiative in place, that whole we and they language, or we and you, needs to go away. And it needs to be a corporate we, a corporate us, because we're in this together. When you message down like, we are so appreciative of your insights, it puts a very subtle divide in there that it's like top and bottom. But it can't be. It's got to be, obviously, there's someone who has to make the decision, right? You have to know you have the budget. You have to know where the company's going. Yeah. But once that decision's made, hopefully you've been able to solicit some folks' input, but sometimes you can't, and that's understandable. But once you say, we want your feedback, you need to make that very thoughtful, and you need to be very genuine and very sincere about it.
Well, I think we just had an instance, and would never, say who it was, but we had an instance with a workshop that you did. And I remember that we talked about the psychological safety and, don't react negatively, and all questions are good, and this whole entire thing. And the first person that brought up a question, immediately people were like, that's stupid. Why would you ask something like that? And it was like, this is not, but because it was in the culture.
But I like two people who said, that's exactly what she said not to do. So I was like, well, okay, two people got it.
But it is true. I mean, when you've been in a pattern of doing something one way, if you think about this from a pure psychology background, which is what you went to school for, if I get corrected every time I do something, and then you say to me, oh, it's now okay to do it, I still have a fear you're going to correct me. So if you've had a culture where you didn't solicit feedback from employees, and now you're soliciting feedback, I get, Brene Brown talks about, it's not the story, it's the story you tell yourself. I guarantee you amongst your employees, they're sitting there going, what gives? Because for 20 years, they didn't want our voice. Now all of a sudden they want to hear from us. What are they trying? They're trying to figure out who to get rid of, aren't they? Like, that's going to be the story they're going to tell. It's just the natural reaction. So you have to, and I talk about this a lot, sometimes you have to plant that. You have to go and sit down with a couple people and say, look, people are going to be resistant. When we
people are not resistant.
Okay, go ahead.
They exhibit resistant behaviors. So there's a difference. You don't have resistant people, because you could be, if I made you go right now to get a pedicure, you would be very resistant.
I would be.
But it's a resistant behavior. You yourself are not resistant.
I see.
It's that behavior, right?
Yeah.
Me doing this right now, I had a resistant behavior. I like being behind the camera. I don't like being on camera. So it's resistant behaviors, and it's behavior modification that you're bringing into play, that you have to very, very methodically, but very genuinely say, look, we want your input. We want your feedback. Are we going to take all of it and incorporate it? No, because we can't, right? But the more we get, the more we can realize, oh my God, there was a gap. We totally missed that this change was going to affect that process. We need to, circle back around and figure out how we're going to, maybe it's an input into an output, right?
Yeah.
How do we adjust for that? And that could be somebody who does that job or is a part of that process is the only one who would have known that. And had they not said anything, you get way down the road and you realize, oh wait, we got to back everything up, fix this. Yeah. Seek this, and then go back down the road again. So you waste time, money, and energy, which no company has right now, or people. It's not fair to people either. So that's why speak up. Are we going to take everything that you say and put it into the process or put it into the initiative? No, but we'll let you know why or why not.
Yeah, I
think
just
be very genuine.
That's what I talk about a lot with FAT, right? And with the Kanban board
you were
system
great at
that we did at FAT. It's like, just because it's an idea that gets brought up doesn't mean it's a good idea. So first and foremost, let the employees vet it out. Before it gets to management, let the employees as a team say, this would affect not just one person saying, yeah, that's a good idea, but get a consensus of people to say, I agree, this is a good idea. Then hand it off to management. And then management and leadership can take it and say, you know what, it's not possible. But at that point, it shouldn't die. You have to go back to the source again, and you have to say, we analyzed this. We did the work. We hired an analyst that looked at it. We called legal. We got people involved. Unfortunately, we're unable to do that. But it's such a great idea, and we thank you for bringing it up. What are your next ideas?
And sometimes too, it's not always going to management and leadership. Again, that's that us, us, them. Sometimes it has to. Like I said, there has to be the decision maker, the buck stops here kind of person. But sometimes it goes to what we call a peer advisory circle.
Yeah.
Right. Part of your PAC, right? Your PAC. So when you have a peer advisory council, those are your advocates who are working on your behalf as a team to try to look at everyone's perspective, everyone's view, and say, this will work or this won't work and why. So it's not always, management leadership. Sometimes it hits that PAC team first and they say, okay, you need to refine it, or here's why we're not passing it further to the legal team, HR, whoever that goes to.
No, I just think it's in the end, and I know you say this in a lot of your presentations, the illusion, the biggest misconception about communication is that you believe it happened.
George Bernard Shaw says that, right?
Yeah. And it's so true that I've had many times where, who was it just recently that was telling us, they're like, well, we sent an email on that 3 months ago about the policy changing. And why did you can't get your expenses in correctly? We sent this email 3 months ago. It's like, well, number one, did I get the email? Did I work here 3 months ago? Number one. Number two, did I get it? Did I read it? Did I have time to digest it? Was I able to change? There's so much that goes into this. Communication really is, if you just communicated like that in your marriage, you'd have a really hard time, right? You've got to have open communication. You got to be able to talk and dialogue and have those kind of conversations. And I think, as Sam will talk about a little bit when we bring him on too, is, you got to be able to sometimes have those difficult conversations too. Yeah. And that's a real part of it. We all want it to be unicorns and fairy tales. It's just not, particularly when it comes to change. Yeah. A lot of times it's pain and it's sorrow and it's disappointment and it's missed deadlines. And that's okay as long as everybody knows, look, we're rowing together. Like, we're only a stroke behind. We can still win this thing. Yeah.
And I think something you say is to be unclear is to be unkind. Yeah. Brene Brown says a little bit differently, which is to be clear is to be kind. And by the way, Brene, call me, I'm your fan, not him. Yeah. He's poaching my hero
I like
from me. But clarity, communication. And it's not just saying the same message over and over. It's using different methods. Some people are very auditory and they like to hear things. Some people are visual. They want to see a video and hear it, right? Some people are just like, give me 3 sentences on it in a Twitter type thing, So we have all these different means of communication. Yeah. And part of a change program has to be harnessing the power of those communication tools. The first thing I do when I go into an organization, or one of the first things I do, is say, send me samples. I want to know how you communicate, what words you use, how
it has
frequently.
Memo written across the top. That's probably not a good thing.
Yeah. And if it's in mail slots, something's wrong. But So it's just harnessing communication.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And we can wrap this segment up, but I think it's important. I wanted to introduce everybody to you because, you're on the back end doing this work now for us. And I really do. I think it's a really critical, important part. And it's the part of our business that we're building out the most right now is around change and culture, because what we do understand is that change is now exponential. We had Aaron Baer just here a few moments ago.
Change is constant.
It's constant.
Change is the wrong word. I'm waiting to find the right word.
Yeah.
Like, I hate management because no one likes to be managed and no one likes to manage. Everyone wants to lead. So I've got the change leadership for my bridge, but we need to find a different word for change, because in the past, it used to be you have this big initiative and you run it through its length of time and then it's over and then life goes back to normal. Change, look at AI, what it's bringing to us. Like, you have to be, the organizations that are going to succeed are the ones who are agile, or the ones who embrace change, or the ones who empower and motivate their team members to find that change, to find those efficiencies and to bring them to the surface and have that open communication. Those are the organizations that are going to succeed in the future. So we need to get out of the mindset of we are managing change. You lead people through an initiative. You don't manage the actual change. That does nothing. So you have to lead the people through it, but change is the wrong word. So if anyone has a better word out there, I'm happy to hear it, because it's constant.
Tracyann at theprocessfixer.com. Please send us
please
your ideas for
how
I hate the word.
And don't put change and management together, because my skin will crawl.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here and talking
Thanks
about
for
this.
having me.
I know, first time in, I've been doing podcasting since 2009. First time you've been on the show.
I know.
Good to have you.
Good to have you too.
Thanks for joining us. We've got a couple more episodes that are like this, that are shot in this new format. Love to hear your feedback on it as well. I really like bringing people into the studio and sitting across from them. I just think you get a different vibe And I tend to like it, but we're still going to do a little mix here on this show, whatever works best for our guests to get the highest quality guests we possibly can. Okay, well, until next time.
You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the process fixer. Help you see the bigger picture. Derrick Names is the elixir, cutting waste away like scissor. Woo! Got a problem, he can solve it. He's an expert with the process, so for sure you'll see a profit. Bottom line profit. Analyze the work your people doing every day. Expose the inefficiencies getting in the way. Advise you how to automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate, innovate. Now there's more food up on your dinner plate.